When people discuss football, a big topic they often discuss is fantasy football. Fantasy football is very popular among NFL fans because not only is it fun to draft a team, it's fun to play in your leagues with your friends and compete head-to-head with them, whether it be for bragging rights or anything else. In a lot of fantasy leagues, whether the league is played through ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, or wherever, some of these apps sleep on NFL players, and that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. We're going to discuss some NFL players that are slept on in ESPN leagues and are being ranked much lower than they should be, and I will be giving an in-depth reason as to why they should be higher. And that's not to say X player that's ranked 34th at his position should be ranked 4th or in the top 3 or anything that's substantial, but it is to say they should be ranked anywhere from 5 to 10 spots higher. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. We start today's video with Colts quarterback Philip Rivers. Philip, on average, is ranked by the ESPN Fantasy guys 25th, with his highest rank being 24th and his lowest being 27th. He is outranked by players like Gardner Minshew, Joe Burrow, and Jimmy Garoppolo, and while Philip won't be a 5,000-yard, 40-touchdown quarterback this year in Indy, I do think he deserves and has earned more respect than what he's being shown. He has thrown for over 4,000 yards in every season but one since 2008, and has thrown for at least 28 touchdowns in every season but one since 2013. He did regress a little last season, but I don't think that's going to continue in Indy for a few reasons. The two biggest reasons, of course, are not playing in the equivalent of 16 road games per year and having a good offensive line. The crowd Philip had to play in front of for the past few years was brutal, and for him to put up over 4,000 yards and 32 touchdowns in 2018 is a big achievement in itself. On top of it, with or without fans this year, it should make at minimum a small difference in his play. The offensive line could perhaps make a world of difference, as he gets to play behind players like Anthony Costanzo, Quentin Nelson, and Ryan Kelly versus not them. T.Y. Hilton and Michael Pittman Jr. aren't as good as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, but the offensive line in Indy is leap years of what he had in LA. The Joe Burrow projection of 3,600 yards and 20 touchdowns means that's what he is expected, not his ceiling. Will Burrow eventually be better than what Philip is in 2020? Yes, absolutely, but I think that's a little premature, and I think Philip is a tad low on his fantasy ranking heading into this season. And next is Jared Goff, who, despite not leading his team to the playoffs, performed well statistically in 2019. He has had back-to-back 4,600-yard years and has 82 touchdowns in the past 3 years. Although his touchdown percentage was down last year, he should improve in that category this year, and having an improved running game should only help. Cam Akers can be better than Gurley was in 2019, but to expect him to be the thoroughbred of the offense that Gurley was in 2015 through 18 and win an Offensive Player of the Year award simply isn't realistic. Goff can throw for at least 4,000 yards again and throw for at least 25 touchdowns, as I would imagine the Rams will be throwing the ball quite a bit in 2020. Jared led the league in pass attempts last year with 626, which equates to 39 per game, and with that much volume and opportunity to produce, Goff will put up numbers. It's that simple. I don't think he will ever be a Mahomes-type player statistically, but if he's given the amount of opportunity he was last year, Jared can put up 4,600 yards easily and should throw for more than 22 touchdowns. I think he is an above-average quarterback, and although his numbers weren't too great last year, I think it's natural for a quarterback, and a team for that matter, to regress after a Super Bowl run. Goff being ranked on average of 20th in projections means he is slightly below average, and I don't think he belongs in the top 5 quarterback conversation by any means, but I do think he is above 20th. He still has the same coach and still has Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and those guys have great chemistry with Jared. Having a new quarterback without the preseason will make a huge difference for those teams, but with the continuity of Goff and those receivers should make him a top 15 fantasy quarterback, and there's no reason Jared can't throw for 4,500 yards and 28 touchdowns in 2020. And next is one of my favorite young players in the NFL, and it's Bills running back Devin Singletary. Devin averaged over 5 yards per carry in 2019 and should get even more attempts this year. He only had 151 carries in 2019 and just 29 receptions, but with what he provided for the Bills, which is, by the way, nearly 1,000 yards of offense, he will get more attempts this year. While Frank Gore left for the Jets, the Bills drafted running back Zach Moss in the 3rd round, and while that could be a thorn in Singletary's fantasy side, I think with what he provided in 2019 will certainly give him the chances he's earned. He played in just 12 games, and the Bills were 8-4 in the games he played, and not surprisingly, when he carried the ball 20 or more times last year, they were 3-0. I haven't been a huge Gore fan for a few years, and he's averaged just 3.9 yards per carry since 2015. I don't think Singletary's opportunities should have been taken by Gore as much as they were last year, but that's fine because heading into 2020, Devin is underrated and will prove fantasy analysts wrong. When the weather gets cold in Buffalo in late November and December, they will want to run the ball more with both him and Moss, and no matter how strong Josh Allen's arm is, the colder the temperature gets, the more inaccurate passes get. This could be huge in terms of pushing for a fantasy championship, because Devin will certainly get a lot of opportunity when your team needs him the most. Singletary had an average ranking of 22nd among running backs in PPR leagues on ESPN, and I think he will prove to be much higher than that. And next is, and this may be surprising, but Eagles rookie receiver Jalen Reagor. Jalen on average is ranked 60th in ESPN leagues behind players like teammate Alshon Jeffrey and Curtis Samuel of the Panthers. Jalen will in year one immediately receive a lot of targets, and while Eagles fans were upset about the selection of him initially above Justin Jefferson, I think with time Reagor will win them over. I think Reagor can be the deep threat the Eagles again need with the departure of Nelson Aguilar and the aging Deshaun Jackson. Remember, Deshaun opened 2019 against the Redskins with an 8-catch, 154-yard, 2-touchdown performance, and while that's not sustainable for Jerry Rice or Randy Moss, let alone Jalen Reagor, it's definitely possible Jalen has a game or two like that this season. With Jalen Reagor, I think we have a player that could be the best receiver statistically in his class because of how crowded fellow first-rounders Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, and Justin Jefferson's receiving rooms are. It's very possible Jalen goes in and wins the number one receiver position in year number one and holds it down for close to the next decade. He only ran a 4.47 at the Combine in Indy, but his game speed suggests he is much faster than that, and if he stays healthy, then the sky is the limit. He has a very favorable situation as Carson Wentz has played at an MVP level before in his career. Jalen is projected 51 catches for 640 yards and 5 touchdowns by ESPN, and I think it's possible for Jalen to have 60 to 70 catches for 850 to 1,000 yards and 7 to 8 touchdowns in year one. He is in a division with not good corners and has a great quarterback to throw him the football. Everything adds up in my book, and Jalen will be a good player in year one. And now we head to Green Bay to discuss Packers receiver Allen Lazard. Allen had 35 catches in 2019 in his second year in the NFL, and as of now is, on average, the 68th ranked receiver in PPR leagues. He is currently projected 42 catches for 572 yards and 3.6 touchdowns in 2020. And while Davante Adams will certainly receive a lot of targets, I'm not even trying to dispute that, Lazard will be a solid number 2. I wouldn't depend on Lazard being a 90-catch, 1,200-yard player, but to suggest he can't be a 60-catch, 600 to 700-yard player and have 6 to 8 touchdowns certainly isn't unrealistic in 2020. Aaron Jones won't have the type of year he had in 2019 this year, as 16 touchdowns every year just isn't realistic, and this is where Lazard can thrive. Lazard is 6'5" and will be a great red zone target for Aaron Rodgers as he gets up there in age. Allen's statistics are tough to project because of Davante Adams being in the same offense, but I do think Lazard is good for a little more than over 2.5 catches per game. A 572-yard season projection equates to 35 yards per game, and I think Lazard is capable of more than that. He very clearly won't be a number 1 wide receiver unless Davante goes down, and we all obviously hope that doesn't happen, and that's fine. Not everyone can be, but he can be a solid contributor for the Packers and more than prove ESPN analysts wrong. And lastly, we go to Stefon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. Diggs is on average ranked 28th in ESPN PPR leagues, and I think this is low for him for a few reasons. He is at the highest 24th and at the lowest 30th, and this is based on a guy who is coming off of an 1,100-yard season in a run-heavy offense. Not only that, but Diggs played in only 15 games and had 4 targets or less in an additional 3 games, which really limits what he can do as a fantasy weapon. I don't think the Bills gave up nearly half of a draft to have a quarter of the season where Stefon receives just 9 targets, and because of that, his receptions should immediately go up. In terms of maximizing a player's potential, we immediately think of Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes, but with the improvements Josh Allen made as a passer from year 1 to year 2, jumping 6% in completion percentage, Diggs very well could become a 1,300-yard, 10-touchdown player in his first season with the Bills. John Brown had over 1,000 yards in this same offense, and I think it's more than fair to say Stefon is a better player than John Brown. Diggs has had 4 offensive coordinators and 5 quarterbacks since he entered the league in 2015, and with Josh Allen being just 24 years old, those two could be together for the next half decade, if not longer. I will admit, as a Diggs fan and a Vikings fan who watched Stefon grow from a rookie to a fan favorite before he was traded, I am partially biased here, but I can't see any way Stefon finishes as the 28th receiver in PPR leagues in 2020, assuming he stays healthy, of course. He will finally get his chance to prove to be a number 1 wide receiver, and I think Stefon will more than capitalize on it, and ultimately pay huge dividends to fantasy owners. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. If you ever have a video suggestion, leave it in the comments or DM me on Twitter, and if you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your day and the continued support, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.